friends. This is take 89 of trying to recap the Bachelor in Paradise finale. And when I say 89, I think it's actually been that many times between the internet issues, the sound issues. It has been, yes. So we're just going to make sure before we start that we are actually live on YouTube.
Are we? Wait, I think.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening. I see us.
Oh my god, it actually worked. What the fucking...
Okay. So first and foremost, if you are watching this and listening to this, thank you so much for your patience. It was not our intention to wait this long to recap the finale.
No.
We had scheduled to recap it from Florida once it got pushed another week. And then when we got to Florida, the internet at our hotel could not even sustain, like,
anything.
A FaceTime, let alone a live stream to YouTube.
Yeah.
So here we are.
We're just doing our best. And so because we had planned to do the live stream in Florida, we ran into some technical difficulties. One is that our sign we packed didn't...
Hi, Jessica.
Didn't work.
It didn't make it through the travels. Which, you know, kind of, this feels like a visual representation of the finale.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Oh, thank you guys. You haven't seen my new haircut.
Oh, yeah, Rachel got a haircut.
I did get a haircut.
She did.
I really love it.
Yeah.
Come hang out on Instagram, first and foremost, because I know some of you emailed us and, like, wrote us through different platforms. On Instagram is where we can keep you as updated as possible for, like, in-the-moment things. So when we couldn't go live in Florida, we went on there and let you know, I'm just so ready to recap this thing. It's like...
I find the challenges that we have faced along the way slowly getting, larger and larger, the challenges have been. And I feel like that's very representative of how I feel about the recap of this finale, because... Our pineapple lights broke about 2 weeks ago. We were planning on doing the live stream in Florida, so I took down our entire set. There's supposed to be a whole screen here. That's gone. Our sign got literally destroyed, so we're just going to get rid of that. We've run the gamut trying to get this together, so we're happy to be here, and I'm ready to end this.
Yeah.
I'm ready to end the season of Paradise. I didn't like how it ended with the reunion. I think the show itself ended fine. The reunion put a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm just ready to end this thing.
Yes. So if you're here live with us, please say hello. Thank you all so much for the comments about my hair. It's like so sweet.
On a Sunday morning, we're happy to have you.
Yeah,
we're supposed to go live later, but then life intervened there too. So we're just
making
this thing
here.
happen.
We're ready to go. One thing I will say is that we had the pleasure of interviewing Devin Harris from Hannah Brown's season of Bachelorette. If you don't remember who Devin was, he was the lovely gentleman who walked out during Men's Hall to confront Luke Parker. We had a wonderful interview with him. Unfortunately, we could not live stream that.
Because of said internet issues.
Yes. So that interview is ready to go. And it is via podcast. So if you are not subscribed to the podcast version of our show and just happen to watch on YouTube, make sure you go to wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher.
Most of the places.
If
you find a place where our podcast isn't, let us know and we will fix that.
Yes. And thank you, Jen and Michael and Andy. Thank you so much. We are just so thrilled to be here too. And I love this. Oh, okay.
All right,
so go listen to that interview. I think that you will really, really like it.
Yeah, Devin's such a good dude. Wish we had seen more of the person that we talked to. I wish we had seen more of that person on the show. I'm bummed that we didn't get to see that.
Yeah.
That's it.
And my cousin is actually at iHeartRadio. She is a media correspondent for Radio Disney.
Yeah.
And she sent me a picture with Mike Johnson last night. So
apparently he's very nice in person as well.
Yes. And
shocking, right?
Hopefully we'll get to have him on the show as well. Okay.
You ready?
Anything else before we dive in?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I mean, it's about diving in, really.
It's about
diving in. So we'll obviously recap the end of the actual season and what happens, who gets engaged, who doesn't. And because we're going to go through this chronologically, as if there has been no spoilers, and watch the whole thing and whatever.
But if you haven't watched the whole thing by now, I don't know what to tell you.
Also, yeah. I mean, yeah. And then we'll get into the reunion, which I'm not excited for, but I am excited for the end of the show, so that's going to be a great way to start this out.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so one question, and for everybody listening, I would love to know this, whether you're here live or recording. Why didn't they do the reunion show like the live after the final rose? So
weird.
They filmed it 3 weeks before we watched it. That was about the timing. They filmed in LA 3 weeks before we got to see it. So by the time we all watched that, the relationships were all in really different places. Because 3 weeks, I mean, that's like how long Paradise is.
Right.
So their relationship like doubled in time, essentially. And we didn't get to see the actual update.
Yeah, it was a really odd choice. There's a lot of things I struggle with when it comes to the reunion episode or reunion portion of this episode. Particularly the fact that Clay and Nicole were not featured at all.
Even though they were there and had an interview.
Got out of our way to confirm they were actually there. They did an interview. Chris talked to them both. They shared how they were feeling and what happened. And we just didn't see it, which is confusing because, if anything, they were one of the most highlighted couples of the entire season. So I find that odd. I find a lot of things odd, especially because... So it's been, like a week and a half since I've written my notes about the finale, and my notes start out with saying, Chris Harrison says some dumb stuff. I don't know what it was.
Chris reminds us that while there's drama, there's also true love, and that there are 4 couples left. Oh. So we're going to dive in. If you are watching this on YouTube, please click the thumbs up button underneath this video. It helps other people find the video. It tells YouTube, like, hey, this video is pretty cool. I like it. And other people may.
If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you're subscribed, drop us a rating or a review. It helps get the word out to a lot more people because the algorithm loves positive feedback or any feedback. If you have criticisms, constructive ones, we would love to hear them, and it helps everyone. So let us know what you think. Make sure you're subscribed, and you ready to do this thing? Ready to wrap this up?
I am so ready.
Ready to shut this
one
down.
Other thing.
Okay.
So in the off season, friends, we are going to have some shows and interviews coming out. So please make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, that you're subscribed to the podcast, and that you follow us on Instagram. The handle's right here. It's at The Right Reasons, or you can follow us individually, either way. But make sure that you are following and subscribed so that when we have a random episode pop up, like this one with Devin that was not on YouTube, that you get notifications. Because otherwise we have no other way of telling you, which kind of sucks, but that's how you can find out. Okay. Ready to go?
Yeah, so we start out with the remaining couples, Nicole and Clay, Demi and Christian, Katie and Chris, Dylan and Hannah, and we get little sound bites from each of them kind of about how they feel. And Hannah thinks that when you get engaged, that puts a stamp on how you feel in the relationship. Okay.
Which is true.
It's true. It's an odd viewing of it for me, I think. It's like, when you get engaged, it's like an offer for a bigger thing, a better thing. It's not like a stamp. The way I see an engagement is that it's like opening a door where the relationship can grow further and further and further. Where the way she framed it, like, it's a stamp on how you feel, and I'm like, well, it's an invitation to feel more, is what I see. I don't know. I thought that was kind of odd, and that's why I wrote it down. Continue, please.
That's very interesting. So all 4 couples go into their fantasy suite dates. Chris Bukowski tells Katie that he's falling in love with her, and that he says, I'm so excited to show you that I won't falter. And this relationship, I think, is probably the most realistic. I would say Demi and Christian and Chris and Katie feel the most realistic in terms of, if you don't know, our work is with couples, and I've been a licensed marriage therapist for a hot minute. Which reminds me, I need to renew my license this week.
7 years?
Yeah,
6 years?
I don't know. It's been a while. And those two relationships feel the most realistic in terms of...
Like, the challenges they face are not, like, beach-related. They're, like, real-life issues.
Yes.
Like, someone has a hard time committing, or someone's struggling to feel comfortable in their sexuality, and it's creating an issue with someone who is comfortable in their sexuality. That's a real-life situation. That's a great point. That's really...
And, like, Chris and Katie dealing with the fact that he... You know, we'll get to this in the reunion, but, like, they both are clearly into each other, but Chris seems to have some serious wounds from past relationships.
Yeah.
So it just, I enjoyed watching Chris and Katie and Demi and Christian the most because it felt the most realistic to me. Whereas Dylan and Hannah, I'm so happy for them.
Yeah.
If they're happy, like, by all means, I am, like, standing ovation. So glad you found each other.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to necessarily overcome the things, at least that we got to see, that the other couples did.
Well, yeah, their struggles were that Hannah was trying to stay open-minded to various relationships, and Dylan was really locked in, so he had to struggle seeing her explore whatever.
Yeah.
And that can happen in real life, but usually doesn't happen within a 100-foot proximity of the person who you're trying to date. So
you mean you didn't have to watch me swing dance and make out with other people for a while?
No, and I think most people usually don't deal with that. So I, again, stand with Dylan and Hannah. Great, I'm happy for them, but definitely a show-themed challenge they faced.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's what is interesting to me about Chris and Katie. He reaffirms that he wants to be, have a future with her, and he wants to go to fantasy, and she says she's surprised. And to me, I wrote down, what did she think he was going to say? Like, they've been through all of this. She's asking him for what he said. She wants to hear what he had to say, and yet she's still surprised by it. And I wonder if that's her trying to protect herself a little bit ahead of time, which we've seen in the past has gotten in her way when she's trying to defend. She pushed Chris away initially, and then realized that. So I'm surprised that she was surprised, because, like, shouldn't you feel, even though I hate using the word should because it implies you don't control, but wouldn't she have the ability to feel like reaffirmed, like encouraged, like comforted by this instead of surprised?
I would love to sit down with Chris and Katie. I want to give them our relationship assessment. So we use a relationship assessment by John and Julie Gottman, and it's like seeing your relationship on paper. It's like amazing. A blood panel for your relationship. And so you can actually go in and address the underlying problems that are causing kind of like the top level problems. And I would love to do that with them, because I really do think that they care deeply about each other, and there's just stuff getting in the way. Demi and Christian, then we cut to them, and Demi says something that it made my heart explode. Demi talks about, outside of her sexuality, that she feels truly, undeniably herself. And that feeling of just being you, whether that's your sexuality, your interests, who you love, like
where you live,
like what you wear, it doesn't matter what expression it is, that feeling of being you and having the confidence to just be you is one of the best feelings on this earth. And it was very, very cool to watch, like, cool is an understatement, to watch Demi's transformation from Colton season to now, and watch her go through a really positive growth process on a show that, like, it fostered that.
Yeah.
The Bachelor fostered her growth.
Yeah, it was really, she even talks about, right when they cut to her, about feeling the pressure around people's perceptions of her from Colton season. And seeing her, so, I criticize the show more than Rachel does, and it is what it is. It's still a reality show about, relationships, and they don't handle a lot of things really well. But we get to actually see Demi go through, in 2 seasons, a huge transformation of herself. The difference in her personality, the way she presents herself, the way she talks is different. Everything is so different from who she was in Colton season that it's really amazing, and you could almost edit out everything else but her journey, and it would be like an hour of really, really interesting television.
I know.
They're watching someone
true.
Like, I have to be like this sexy woman who's like really sexually aggressive because that's what people think about me. And then you see her change over time, and that's not who she is. It's really amazing. So I'm really happy. And Kristian talks about how she wasn't really sure if she even had a future with a woman. Like, she was curious about herself, and then finding that was so right.
I wanted to hear more about this so badly. I don't know. Let us know, listening, if you felt this or caught this. Kristian says, Kristian. Oh my gosh. Kristian says she never thought she'd find a lifelong female partner.
Interesting.
I want to know why. Like,
I couldn't care about any of the other couples as much as I do. Like, I want to know more about that. I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Mostly because they're so honest about what they're going through. Like, there's so many couples that's the same Bachelor bullshit. Like, oh, I'm falling in love, but I'm not in love yet. I don't know if I can meet you there. Blah, blah. It's like all the same stuff they always talk about. I want to have kids. I'm 100% in. But this is something... but that's all the shit they say, right? It's like a different language. But the stuff that Kristian and Demi are dealing with and talking so openly and honestly about is something that we haven't seen on the show before, and it's so refreshing.
Yeah, that was a great summary of many of the conversations.
But that's what every single couple, except for this couple, says the entire rest of the episode. I'm 100% in. I want babies. I'm in.
That's very true. And right after that statement, we cut to Clay and Nicole, and for the reasons that you just mentioned, I was personally having trouble feeling invested in their relationship compared to even including Hannah and Dylan. It was so obvious that Hannah and Dylan, Chris and Katie, and Kristian and Demi had these like foundational connections that they were really, really working on building.
Yep.
And with Clay and Nicole, it just didn't feel that way.
No. So here's my summary of, this is my notes in order of watching the Clay and Nicole thing. Why do we care about Clay and Nicole again? They're so insecure. There's so much unsaid and evasive conversation. Clay wants to be 100% sure of his decision before he makes it. I wrote down, but dude, that's fucking life. What you're looking for doesn't exist. There's never a 100% sure thing.
No.
I mean, you could like stand on the top of a skyscraper and drop an egg off, and you're 100% sure that egg's going to break when it hits the ground. Great, but when it comes to
what if it doesn't hit the ground? What if it hits a bird on the way? Or
I would hope that it... Okay.
No, but like what I'm saying is that even with that, there are things that decrease it from 100%.
Right. So there are 99% sure things, but what Clay's looking for in terms of a relationship situation and a trust and...
Oh, yeah, no.
That doesn't exist, and so...
Like, I trust you, Kyle.
Yeah.
As much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I also would not ever put the 100% number on it because
that's life.
I literally don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Like there are very few things that I would say have 100% certainty. And like you said, when it comes to relationships, it's Yep. Jessica in the chat says Nicole was in love with the idea of being in love and not with him.
Ooh, that's good.
I agree with you, Jessica.
I agree with that.
I think that she really liked how Clay was at the beginning, comparatively to these other guys who she thought she was making like this safe, secure choice, right? Kristian, who got himself off the show for a physical altercation, the one who got in the fight with Jordan, not Demi's Kristian. He seemed like the variable, like the bad boy choice.
Yeah.
And she thought that she was going after the stable guy, but Clay is not even secure in his own skin, which is very, very clear in the way that he talks about himself, in the way that he talks about his career, in the way that he talks about his past relationship with Angela. He's not secure in himself. And a person needs to be secure in themselves before they can provide that stability in a partnership and in a relationship. And, there you go. Andy in the chat just said Clay is not 100% sure about himself and his future. And you have to trust yourself before you can trust someone else. Exactly.
100%.
You cannot, he can't trust Nicole and he can't trust Angela because he doesn't trust him. Yeah. And it has to start from within. Yeah. It has to. So it was really like, I just didn't care. Like they wanted space or he wanted space and she's like, okay, go take space. And I was like, this is,
He says he wants to skip the fantasy suite so they can think, and she's she's like, what do you need to think about, man?
Which is true.
She's confused. I'm confused. He stalls a little bit, and then she does what you said. She's like, okay, get your space.
Well, also, he says, I wrote this down, I just want to make sure I'm doing the best thing for both of us.
What is that?
Dude, you don't get to decide what the best thing is for Nicole.
Yeah.
Like, this has happened multiple times this season. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for both of us.
A lot of guys saying this to women.
Yeah.
It's not a good look.
Dude.
Really not a good look.
She can make her own fucking decisions.
Yeah, she got on the show by herself. She actually got there on her own, too. It's like she's a fully functioning adult with their own opinions and thought processes and equal value.
Yep.
It's so weird how men continue to diminish women on the show.
I also think Nicole has a lot of, similar to Clay, I think that she has a lot of inner work to do. And that's not a criticism by any means. We all have inner work that we can constantly be doing.
Yeah.
I really think that it was a very bad combination of two insecure people trying to find security in each other. And those types of relationships, they don't work out.
No.
Think about people in your life who have been in relationships like that. I know I've been there.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life when I was so insecure about who I was, and I found somebody else who also was that way to, like, validate my bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out well. Spoiler.
Oh, yeah, and at the same time, like, back when I was insecure about myself, I just kept everybody at arm's length because that was safer and easier for me. So Clay leaves, all the couples are in their fantasy suites, and Nicole's by herself, and we get a cut of her watching the fireworks,
so
all
sad.
alone, crying. And, I mean, it's morbid. I laughed. I couldn't help myself. Because everyone else is, like, cuddling and making out, and she's just sad by the fireworks, which is something that we've seen Nicole be sad by herself a lot. So I think that, hopefully, by this point, the show has demonstrated to her that she needs to be by herself for a while and do some self-work. Because it's only beneficial. Nothing negative comes out of that.
Yeah. So at this point, we cut to the morning after, and
I write down, there's so much wasted time in this episode.
Correct. So the first couple that we see have their, like, will they propose, will they not moment on the platform thing on the beach, which, by the way, can I just say is so beautiful. Like, totally objectively take out of context. That setting, the way that they put the platform on the sand and then you have the water in the back, I was like, can we, like, go redo? I mean, I loved your proposal.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would totally redo it there. It was stunning.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, so Nicole and Clay are first, and Nicole talks, and Nicole asks him if he loves her.
I don't get this. I write down, why does she still want to be with him at all? He has been nothing but inconsistent, he's been evasive, and he's been distant. Nicole, own yourself. Walk away. This dude is not a partner for you. It's obvious. The writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
You were alone in the fantasy suite. You're done. Like, why are you even on the plop in the first place?
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. That's what I got hung up on, is that she's just allowing herself to be beaten down by his insecurities over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Because of her insecurities of being alone.
Bingo. And that's why two insecure people, again, not a criticism, it just is. It's dangerous for the other person.
Yep.
Now, I couldn't tell if Clay was just incredibly nervous or Nicole had the best face product on, but he was very, very sweaty and she was not sweating at all.
It can be both.
I am a sweater. Like, my face sweats when it's really hot. Like, I'm a
sweater.
I am. I'm just a sweaty person when it's, like, really warm. It's true. It's true. And so I'm watching Nicole's face, and I'm like, it's not sweating at all. And then they cut to Clay, and he's, like, dripping sweat. And I'm like, that'd be me. I need whatever Nicole is using on her face. Yeah. Caitlin made a point in the chat here. She says, I think Clay went on Paradise to get over Angela and use Nicole. He shouldn't have been on the show, and I don't think he even loves himself. 100% agree.
Additionally, going on Paradise specifically to rebound, not a bad thing. Because the idea is to find love. You have the chance of doing it still, which is fine. But as you see, we only get 4 couples in the end. A lot of people go home, even though they were in semi-relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So the act of going on Paradise for a rebound, not a bad thing. However,
it was how he played
point,
it out. Yeah.
Once it's gotten this far, then it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think that Clay just needs to do a lot of work on his capacity for love. He's very uncomfortable with feelings and vulnerability, and I wonder if there is some childhood trauma or something happened in just the amount of sports that he was in, and don't show your emotions.
Right.
That type of...
And not making it in his chosen sport.
Yeah.
Like, that's something I always want to focus on, is that when you are training to be a professional athlete and then you don't get there, that was his purpose.
It's soul crushing.
And now he is struggling to find purpose. And so
yeah,
all of this together, they leave. It doesn't work out.
Well, and Nicole says, I deserve love so deep that the ocean would be jealous.
Okay. That is just a really dumb statement, in my opinion, and I don't like it. And you see their responses to something really, really tragic. So she goes into victim mode, and Clay wants to go drinking. He wants to numb his feelings, which is a feeling that I understand. It's not a healthy one, but I definitely understand. I mean, I think we all can relate to wanting to not feel how we're feeling. In this situation, I don't know. Maybe you should journal first before you go drinking.
It's not, they both kind of went into their default mode, and to know that Clay's default is to numb his feelings is very consistent with what we were talking about before, with the fact that he is uncomfortable with feeling.
Yep.
So that was the end of that, and then we literally don't see them at the reunion.
We do get one great moment with Nicole before it's done. She says, now she really relates to Angela.
I forgot about that.
She's been going out of her way to trash talk for weeks. Now she's like, oh, she and I, we understand each other. You've been a dick to her the whole time.
Like, you've been mean girling her.
Yeah, and now you, relate. That's absolutely insane. I'm going to fix this reflection thing. You keep talking.
What reflection thing?
The reflection thing over here.
Oh, thank you.
I was getting blown up by that reflection. All right, let's do this.
So then we cut to a commercial, and we come back, and it's Chris and Katie's time. Chris looks absolutely happy, so happy. Katie says she feels giddy. Chris tells Katie that he's in love with her. He says that it's been a roller coaster, but the highs are unexplainable. And he starts crying, telling her how he feels around her and about her. He says, I can't imagine a second without you. I see you in my tomorrow. I see you in my forever. And he proposes and says yes. And I wrote down, this is the most unexpected couple ever, and I'm very here for it. Obviously, we'll talk about the reunion after, but this proposal was incredibly sweet. I thought that it was genuine. Again, objectively, cannot imagine getting engaged after 21 days.
No.
But in the context of the show, it was very, very cool. Yeah,
absolutely. So they go off and do the thing, and now we get the most secure of couples featured, Dylan and Hannah. We all know the directions.
What is secure? So this is it's so interesting you say that, because I heard other people describe them like that too.
Yeah.
In this context, not in real life, but in the Bachelor and Paradise world.
Yeah.
What does a secure couple mean?
I don't see them falling victim to the show's usual tropes. No one's going to go steal Dylan or Hannah from each other. They've made the decision to be together. Everyone's been as soon as the Blake thing died down, both Hannah and Dylan were off limits on the beach. They weren't even on camera half the time.
Okay,
when Blake went home, they didn't even know what happened.
Yeah.
The next morning, Dylan's like, hey guys, what's up? And Blake went home. He's like, what? When?
Okay.
Why? They've moved on from the usual challenges that even Chris and Katie are going through, because they're on unstable footing, whereas I see Dylan and Hannah, they both kind of know what's going to happen. Dylan is so, over the top in love with Hannah, and she's a little resistant to show her feelings, but they're there right underneath the surface. Once she's able to say it, you see her, get super uncomfortable in her ITM, and she's like, I love Dylan, super nervous about it. But they're clearly clearly an established couple outside of the show's usual format.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do want to clarify, like, there's been a lot of comments on, oh, he's so clingy to her and he's more into her than she is into him and blah, blah, blah. Certain people just display affection more than others. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for all of us, like, yes, we can totally comment on it, of course, because literally that's like what this whole show is.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that just because something isn't our personal taste, that it doesn't mean that it's bad. And the way that Dylan is with Hannah, nothing that we've seen has been red flaggish. It hasn't seemed unhealthy. It hasn't seemed yeah.
Well, so, and let's remember this. They don't have phones. They don't have television. They have nothing to do but focus on each other. And do you remember the first 21 days of our relationship?
Right. We
were all over each, and that's, I mean, think about it. It's like every part of your relationship is just pushed together. Like the first 6 months of a relationship, they're experiencing in like 20-something days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's over the top. And it shows a different personality between the way he expresses his affection. I would guess that his love language is words of affirmation.
And physical
touch. Because what does he do nonstop? Touches and talks about how much he likes her. So, I don't know. I mean, and Hannah's a little different. She's a little more reserved, a little more introverted in the way she expresses herself. But when she does, she says the same stuff. So, to me, it's just Dylan's really head over heels, and she's really happy with him, and they're just doing their thing.
That probably won't last.
Yeah.
Just chemically in our brains, there are different chemicals that are released during the quote-unquote honeymoon phase versus the long-term relationship phase, which is we need different chemicals in our brain to be released. It's how we bond with other people.
Right.
And so the chemicals that are flooding through both of their brains right now are contributing to what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's totally okay to watch that and be like, wow, that is a turnoff to me.
Right.
Cool. There are some people who really love that and who want to feel pursued in that like almost vomity way of like, oh my God, it's so sweet. Like I can't.
The first 3 months of a relationship is happening. Like they're experiencing it all at once.
Right.
It's a lot. And so they talk about how he plans on proposing to her. And here's something that I noticed that irritates me personally. Why does Chris Harrison only talk with the women before the engagement? It's really one-sided because it positions the men in a way that all they do is just propose. Like, yeah, we've been talking a lot about how we know Dylan is like head over heels. We know what he's thinking. But I'd like to know what Chris was thinking when, like, Chris Bukowski would talk to Chris Harrison. I would like the guys to be given the same amount of, like, respect around their decisions to get engaged that the women are getting from Chris Harrison. Like, they talk about, are you ready? How are you feeling? What do you think they're going to do? What do you think about this? How are you feeling? Give the guys the same option. Treat them as equals in this situation because, yes, the men in a heteronormative context, for podcast listeners, this is air quotes I'm using, are the ones to propose in our weird society. Doesn't have to be that way. A lot of couples don't do that anymore. But in the show's format, it's the way that it is. I would love to know what the person who's doing the proposing is thinking going into it, and I find it a little uncomfortable that only the women are given that platform. It's really strange to me.
Yeah, I would agree. So they get engaged, which was confusing to me because it sounded like Hannah really wanted them to meet each other's families first.
Yeah. And
then all of a sudden he proposes and she says yes. And I was like, wait, did I miss something?
Like that. Dylan walks up to her on the palapa and says, it's the end of paradise, but just the beginning for us. And she goes, I'm nervous. And Dylan says, don't be. And I was like, wow, man, you're really comforting her. You're nervous, just don't be nervous.
Just calm down.
And that's it's a dumb thing to poke fun at, but it's such a weird thing that we do as a culture where you're like, I'm feeling this way, and someone's like, well, just don't. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I didn't think of not being nervous. God, it's so nice that he said that, though, because...
See, like, that's more unattractive to me than the like, physical clinginess. I'd be like, don't tell me what not to feel. Thank you.
So, whatever. He says that he's willing to fly to Alabama as soon as the thing... This is what I think convinced her that the proposal was something they both really wanted because they wanted to...
Other than the free ring?
other than the free like $100,000 ring they're getting. I mean, let's just
Shirley
focus
just
on that
in the
real
chat,
quick.
too.
Free ring. But he does say, I'll fly to Alabama today if it means that we can move forward. And she's like, well, shit, all right, because that's my one thing that I was thinking about. So she's smitten. He proposes. She says yes. And then he explains to her that now they're engaged, which so helpful again.
Thanks, Dylan.
Super observational.
So then we cut to a commercial, and we come back, and it's Demi and Christian's time.
And this brings up my thing about Chris only talking to the women. Because now there's 2 women. Who's the guy in this situation according to the show's format?
Which, I want to asterisk there.
Yeah.
We are not, okay, can I speak for you and
Absolutely.
You can tell me if I'm incorrect?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to drink some water.
We both do not support the statement or question, who is the man in this relationship or who is the woman in this relationship. This perpetuates a gender, the fact that gender is binary, number 1, which it's not. And number 2, that a relationship must have each one of those sides of the line. I cannot talk today. I need more coffee. It is so not okay to say things like that. So I wanted to, I know you're saying it in a joking way, because I just wanted to clarify that because I have actually heard that, especially after last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we went live, I had talked about my experience dating women, which, by the way, then ended up turning into me coming out publicly as bi. So thank you all for holding that space. It's still weird for me to even say, as you heard, like my voice got quiet as I said it. However, I had people say, well, when you were in that relationship, who was more of the, like, you were more the female, right? And I'm like, we were both female.
Yeah.
Also, like, so I just wanted to address that because it's incredibly hurtful and offensive to ask a question like that. And I don't think that it's intended to be hurtful and offensive. No. So I'll shut up now.
No, I mean, but that's exactly it. It's the show is...
and I'm not saying you were saying that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The show is doing a poor job of handling their first non-heterosexual relationship.
Well, they did a decent job.
They did a decent job, but it's stuff like this, the inconsistencies, and that's why, in this context, you see Demi preparing to do what the guys have done so far. So in this situation, I understand it. This is the way I see it, is that Demi is the personality larger than Kristian on the show. She's more well-known on the show.
Well, she's the Bachelor person.
Right. So having her walk makes sense in that context. It's just something that I wonder about in the way that the show is framed, and I think that the show could have done, and they do actually, as we watch later on, they do a decent job of showing that the relationship is not exactly in the confines of the heteronormal relationships that we've seen so far in the Bachelor franchise. We see that at the reunion. We'll get into that too. But in this case, I see people who are not as conscious of the dynamic between 2 women in a relationship, struggling with that, being like, oh, well, Demi's the one proposing here, so she's the man. And that's why I want to address it, because the show could have handled that differently. And again, it's this wouldn't even exist if Chris Harrison talked to everyone. That's the problem. If Chris Harrison talked to the guys, it wouldn't be an issue. But no, we only see him talk to the women. And so it positions, outside of their own control, Demi and Christian into a heteronormative understanding of their relationship. And that's what's unfair in the situation. That took me like 2 weeks to get that out of my head. I finally just unraveled exactly what I meant by that now. But that's what I'm confused by. And that's why I'm a little annoyed at the way they frame that, because it shows a disparity in the responsibility of the relationships. It's like the guys are doing this to the women, and the women need to be okay with it. It's not 2 partners agreeing to something. It's one partner doing something to someone else that means something together. And I don't like the way they frame that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Did I get it?
100%.
Okay.
Now, all of that being said, I shed a tear when they got engaged.
Absolutely.
It was
They both looked
beautiful moment.
Stunning.
Oh, they looked
it was amazing.
unbelievable. They are so in love with each other. And we got to see them deal with real things.
Yeah.
We got to see them deal with unbelievably powerful topics throughout the course of this short period of time. And because they knew each other before, obviously it was a bit different.
Yep.
I am so over the moon happy for them. If you follow them on social media, they're just adorable. This proposal was such a big deal for the franchise. There are people, if you watch our show, if you watch The Right Reasons or listen to The Right Reasons, you're probably more aware of LGBTQ relationships than the majority of people who watch The Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to remember that a huge portion of the people who watch The Bachelor live in areas where they are being told that same-sex relationships are wrong and sinful and not okay. And a huge portion of The Bachelor's viewership and ratings comes from areas like that and people who believe that. And so for The Bachelor to celebrate this and to put it on TV and to handle it with, I would say, like, A- overall on how they handled the relationship.
Clumsy but effective.
Which, great.
Yeah.
Way better than I thought that they were going to.
Everybody's first time is clumsy. So, The Bachelor had to deal with it, too. Your first time dealing with something. And for such a weighted topic in the polarized community that we all live in now, they did a great job with Demi and Christian, and I'm very excited to get into the reunion now that it is.
Yeah. So that's it.
Oh,
everybody who's engaged hugs and jumps around. Yep. Chris makes the open sign turn to closed, and then we cut to a commercial. At this point, I start realizing that it's not 2 hours, it's 3 hours.
And at this point, in the live show you're watching now, or the recording you're listening to later, I wish my container of liquid over here was tequila and not water, because the reunion, I hated.
Yeah, I did not like the reunion. Actually, before we get into it, let us know in the comments, what did you think of the reunion section? Mm-hmm. So in the chairs at the reunion, we have Annalise, Angela, Onyeka, Jordan, Cam, Connor, Sydney, Haley, Dean, Christian, boy Christian, got in the fight Christian.
Machismo Christian.
Tajwan, Blake, JPJ, Kaelynn, Tasha, Dylan, Demi, Hannah, Derek, Christina, and Mike.
I also realized, at the point we realized that Clay and Nicole aren't there, I also realized while counting all the people off that I only like 4 of those people. The rest of them have been
more than 4.
6 of those people. Because so many of them have been so... That's my issue with this entire season coming together all at once. There's been so much negativity. There's been so much weird drama that doesn't have any context to what we're actually seeing on the beach. People have been backstabbing, slut-shaming, making up things about each other. It has been overall such a negative show that you're bringing out the cast. When you read the first 10 names are people that I don't want to hear about because they've been nothing but negative.
And Andy nails this in our comment sections. Andy says it was very anticlimactic. They didn't even address the major stuff like Nicole and Clay, Clay and Angela, Nicole and Angela. I did not like the reunion. Mm-hmm. It was so often that after the final rose on Bachelor and Bachelorette, I actually like better than the show, and this was the exact opposite for me.
Yeah.
It just didn't address anything. I wanted to hear about the stuff that we didn't know about, not watch Jade and Tanner and Chris and Chris.
Who
anyway,
the fuck
we'll
cares
get there.
about the people? That was the dumbest. Okay, so...
Yeah, and Amanda agrees with you, Kyle. She says, yes, the negativity this whole season was disappointing and made me not want to watch again.
For real, you know what I watched Paradise to see? A bunch of really attractive people in bathing suits getting drunk on the beach and various shenanigans coming out as a result of 20 people trying to date 20 people at the same time.
Right.
That's what I want to see. It's kind of supposed to be a
well,
mess.
and the dynamics between them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be kind of a mess. What we saw instead is people taking things that happened not on camera, bringing it onto the beach, and then making it this giant he said, she said high school bullshit.
And the stuff that I wanted to hear more between John Paul Jones and Derek. I wanted them to flush that out. Like,
you wouldn't have had the opportunity to because, as we do, dive right into it. It's the Derek and John Paul Jones thing, and John Paul Jones immediately interrupts Derek, refuses to apologize for anything he did at the wedding, and that's it. And then, this is my problem. I didn't want to recap it because it's so he said, she said thing, because then Jordan steps in, then Christian says this, and then this guy says this. Oh my God, I don't care.
I will say, so there are many times where Chris Harrison does an incredible job of kind of managing the group and then also getting like juice from the people in the hot seat. This was not, to me, this was a very poor showing on Chris Harrison's part.
Yeah.
It seemed like it didn't seem like he let JPJ off the hook.
Yep. Like,
easily. And granted, this could have been editing. If you were at the recording, please let us know. Tell us if it was different.
It was slightly less than half of what was actually recorded that we actually got to see, which blows my mind. They wasted our entire night on some dumb stuff and didn't... Like,
they did not flush out what happened between Derek and John Paul Jones. We literally got more detail from the recorded show than we did on the after show. Yep. It was so frustrating. So that didn't close the loop at all. And I was like, Chris Harrison, like, dig deeper. I wanted to take over that chair. Oh, I'm getting
sweaty. Okay, well,
it's so frustrating.
So here's something that I struggle with every time there's a reunion show of any kind. Jordan is always there, which is the first thing I struggle with. And then I continue to struggle with his existence. Because here's what I figured out. I think I figured it out. Jordan is true chaotic neutral. Have you seen the graph where it's like, whatever, it breaks everything down, and there's the one in the middle where it's like chaotic neutral, where like it's just inflammatory to everything and always a challenge, but it's also not good or bad. It's always like right in the middle. That's Jordan. Because he supports Derek in a way that is so accurate. Because John Paul Jones is like, you're going to say you didn't sleep with your people? You're going to say this? And Jordan,
he says, have you ever slept with anyone who slid into your DMs? And Jordan turns into his lawyer. He's like, you don't have to answer that, Derek.
Well, he cuts him off, and he explains this in such a great way. He says, you don't have to answer that. You're a human being. Social media is part of a dating culture now. Social media is part dating app. All of it is. That's why we joke about sliding into DMs. So you don't need to explain anything because you're a human being doing whatever you want in a consensual fashion. So what he's asking you doesn't matter. And I was like, Jordan, wow. And then the second Christian gets involved, Jordan becomes a douchebag. So I had such a hard time dealing with this person.
I know.
Because he does amazing things and then he does terrible things. So I grade Jordan true chaotic neutral.
Because here's the thing. There is nothing wrong. Let's say Derek has had sex with people who have slid into his DMs. Okay.
They pursued him then.
Literally, right? Who cares? Like,
right.
Why is that? If they are also consenting to the experience and they're pursuing Derek, and Derek is like, yes, I'm interested in you.
Yep.
What is wrong with that? I've met friends on Instagram. I've met, like...
Well, and now that we're also ingrained in social media, what's the difference between someone sliding into someone's DMs and then those two people having sex and, 7 years ago, 8 years ago maybe, not even that long, two people meeting in public and like, oh wow, you're attractive and having a one-night stand. That's the same thing. It's just in person.
Right.
The social media
especially if they know who Derek is in person. Like,
right.
Yeah, it just...
So...
That really bothered me because it made it seem like Derek... It made it seem like if Derek had been intimate with any of his quote-unquote followers, that he's somehow a bad person. And even if he did do that, that's okay. Like, so the whole thing was so infuriating. And yes, Jessica. Jessica says also the quote, slid into his DMs is a weird statement.
Yep.
They chose to DM him. They open the door and walk into the DM. It's a choice.
So
Bingo.
2 consensual adults did some consensual things.
Bingo.
And also, we don't know if it happened because Derek didn't say anything because he didn't have to.
Good for him.
So also, who cares? John Paul Jones, real good job displaying that you're a giant fucking asshole.
Yeah. And
Really?
Andy in the chat says it made it seem like Derek was a predator. Right. Like, you know, how dare Derek have an active, healthy, consensual sex life? Oh,
Right.
my God.
And who's more of a threat? Someone who does that normal stuff or someone who can't actually carry on a constructive conversation in which they receive criticism, learn from it, and understand why it's being said? Instead, they just laugh in someone's face. That's someone who presents much more of a societal threat than someone like Derek.
100%.
I'm
So,
talking
Derek,
about John Paul Jones.
you go do whatever you want to do. If that involves not having sex with anyone, go for it. If that involves having sex with every person who follows you, who says, yes, I want to have sex with you, you go for it, man. You just enjoy it.
Fortunately, I've seen much of social media on Derek's side of the situation.
Thank goodness.
However, there are still people who think that John Paul Jones is correct, and he's not.
Yeah. And
Opinion.
then we get into, obviously opinion. Jessica says he doesn't pull women into his DMs like he's got a vacuum vortex.
Yeah, so let's get this correct really quickly. So Derek, who's an incredibly handsome 32-year-old guy who's emotionally available and has an entire life and career outside of The Bachelor, and then is on the platform, and people are somehow surprised that women have gone after him and pursued him in a sexual manner through social media.
If I were single...
What?
Okay, I'll go on record. If I were single, I would 100% DM Derek.
And I would not blame you for 1 second.
Like...
Because, like I said, on paper, very attractive person.
Yeah. Like, he's great. So then we get into this whole chaos around the fight, which we don't even need to talk about.
Who
but
cares?
We get my favorite quote of the whole episode,
Yeah.
which is Demi saying, "Act civilized. This is a TV show." I died laughing.
Mm-hmm.
It was so funny.
Then we get, and this just breaks down the whole show. Hannah bickers with Tayshia and Sydney. And I like this 1 second, though, because you see a clip of Dylan just, like, holding his head in his hands and, like, doesn't want to be there at all. It was very clear to me that Dylan did not want to be there and probably was contractually obligated. Because, like, same thing with Blake. I wrote down, Blake is either contractually obligated to be here or he's a sadist or something. He looks miserable in every single shot we see.
They're all contractually obligated to be there. From what I understand, the contract states that if production asks you to come, that you have to be there unless there is, like I know for Elise on Colton season, she had a dear friend of hers wedding at the time of the taping. And so she gave that to them as a conflict before the show even started taping.
Right.
So, like, they knew
it
that
happens.
Even if they wanted her there, she was not going to be there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you have to go.
So in the midst of all this, like, catty yelling at each other about stuff that happened and Stagecoach, Jordan, again, he points out that the cast members talking about hanging out before the show ruins the actual show itself because everybody already knows each other. You don't get to see anyone get to know each other because they all already met or have talked before. And I'm like, again, I find myself agreeing with him because this is a super valid point. This season was, like, hung up from the day it started because everybody already knew each other. There was so much that happened before the camera started rolling that we had no relation to. We had no understanding of, and it's all he said, she said stuff. And I'm so annoyed when Jordan makes these really good points because, like, you can be such an... anyway, so such a good point. Cam tries to say something. I realized, Cam, you're just not made up for reality TV. Maybe Survivor, honestly. If I was him, I'd go for Survivor.
Cam was like, well, I wanted it to be, just we all met. I on purpose didn't meet anybody before. And Onyeka calls him out and was like, no, you wanted to go to my birthday party. Like, if Caelynn had met up with you.
This is so high school.
It was stupid.
This is not even high school. This is grade school.
So then we talk through the Caelynn, Dean, and Connor thing, which is literally, like,
who cares?
Pointless. And then we get into, okay, so
Blake
this
on the
is
hot seat.
this is the part that is really important.
All right.
So we get into the Blake hot seat / Christina, Caelynn, Dean discussion. So we find out that they confirm Christina and Blake were essentially fuck buddies, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Okay? She did not know that he was seeing anyone else, which he was not. Caelynn thought that he was just friends with Christina, which he was. They also happen to be sleeping together, which is totally okay when you're two consenting adults.
Yeah.
So Blake says he knew that he was going to take some criticism when he got onto Paradise, but that he did not understand the amount of anger. He was surprised at the amount of anger.
Mm-hmm.
And Blake owns up to essentially everything.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I could have told Christina sooner.
Mm-hmm.
However...
Which turns out that's what she was actually mad about. That he didn't tell her, not that he did it.
Correct.
Of course, she could have said that earlier, or at all, but...
Correct.
Okay. We're here for now.
So Chris Harrison does an okay job during this section. He asks Blake what his understanding of his relationship with Caelynn was. And basically we find out that they were FaceTiming and texting for a little bit of time. And then that went away. And then the stagecoach thing happened. And then they went to Paradise. And she says that she was upset because she had hurt feelings because he was ignoring her on the beach. And this is where I start to see all the holes, right? Like we saw holes before, but the way that they were playing this out and like going through it chronologically. And by the way, the Bachelor, I think it's called Bachelor Happy Hour
Rachel
is the podcast.
Lindsay's.
Rachel Lindsay and Ali Fedotowsky have a podcast. Rachel does an incredible job. They have Blake on. It's his only interview that he's doing. And they go through chronologically this order of how things happened.
Rachel Lindsay flexes her lawyer muscles. And
It's fantastic.
Caelynn's a big old liar.
So she told, Caelynn told everybody that she could, that Blake told her to keep their interaction a secret, which we learn on the reunion show is false.
She lied.
They agreed that they just wouldn't talk about it, but if it came up, that it just wouldn't be a big deal. That was the agreement. So Caelynn acknowledged that she out and out lied about Blake silencing her about a sexual encounter. So Blake says, essentially, I checked in with Caelynn and she told me that she was fine. And he says, the reason why I released the text messages were because of the allegations that you said about me that were not true. If I had sat on this stage and said that she came on to me, meaning that Caelynn came on to him, he says, I would have been laughed off the stage and nobody would have believed me.
Which is 100% correct.
Now, Jordan interrupts and says something that is
Really misogynistic.
really horrible and says, in Caelynn's defense, when a girl says she's fine, typically she's not fine. This is not an okay thing for us to perpetuate anymore.
No.
And
Because Caelynn's an adult. And she needs to say what she means and then stick to it.
And then the person hearing it needs to take at face value what the person is telling them.
Right.
So if I say to Kyle, I'm fine, if he starts questioning me, that's him saying, I know your reality better than you.
Right.
So this was horrible. We need to not perpetuate that. So then Caelynn says about him releasing the texts, this is her quote,
I've never felt more violated and exposed in my life. This was really hard for me to hear because she is a survivor of a sexual assault.
It was a huge topic on Colton's season.
The fact that she is saying that she never felt more violated and exposed when those texts were released.
The text that incriminated her and showed that she was lying to all of America and to Blake and the beach.
She's saying that she felt more violated from just the truth coming out than when she was assaulted. And that is really hard to hear because it diminishes the feelings of violation and vulnerability and pain that one would feel after an assault. So Blake is the one that is correct here. And I know that there are going to be people who are watching this and listening to this that will disagree with me, with us. I understand. That's okay. This is our opinion. Caelynn admitted that she lied.
Yep.
She only admitted that she lied after Blake released what actually happened.
Right.
Blake's boss called him after the episode of Bachelor in Paradise aired. So the episode aired saying that he silenced a sexual assault survivor, essentially. Okay? Blake's ex-boss calls and says, dude, you can't, this is horrible. Like, what kind of person does this?
This is damaging long term.
And Blake, like, I didn't tell her that. I didn't say that. And no one's listening to him because we're all listening to this woman who is a survivor of a sexual assault. So if she says, I mean, if any woman says, if any person says, this person told me not to tell anybody about our encounter, why would we not believe that? Right? So Blake is sitting there with his entire character in question. And the only way to clear that up is to share those texts.
So let's frame this. Just, I like to summarize. Let's make sure that we mention here that Dean opens his stupid mouth. I don't like Dean. I've never liked Dean. He opens his mouth to say that, Blake, you knew she would get heat when you released those text messages. And that's why it's not okay. Let's just correct everything. That's just exactly what happened here. Blake has false allegations that are detrimental to his life and career long term thrown about around him.
On national television.
He responds to his social media following on Instagram by releasing proof that that is all lies, and that she aggressively pursued him in a way that if a man did it to a woman, he would be in a lot of trouble. So that's what.
Not
that's
that there's anything wrong with pursuing somebody. I want to clarify
not at all.
that.
It was the way in which she pursued him. He said no 3 times. She ordered an Uber when he was still saying, "Don't come over." If a guy did that, it would be drastically different. So there's that. And let's keep in mind, Blake has a large Instagram following. It is nowhere near the viewership of the Bachelor franchise.
Right.
So, small pond. And now, people are mad at Blake for proving that this person lied about him.
Falsely accused him.
So, Blake, innocent person, defends oneself. Liar now is being comforted by society and by the people on the cast because, oh no, she's getting heat for being a liar.
Yeah, and that's an excellent clarification. Nobody is giving Caelynn heat for pursuing a sexual encounter.
No.
Okay? That's not the issue here. The issue is that she literally accused him of doing something horrendous. And he had proof that he didn't do that. And he knew that just saying, I didn't do that, wasn't going to cut it. Because no one would believe him. And the discussion the whole time Blake was in the hot seat, it was so fucked up. It was so unethical. The way that Chris Harrison, and it's not even Chris Harrison's fault. Like, he's not a trained mental health professional. But they needed, in that situation, they needed somebody trained in mental health and trauma to be handling that conversation. It was so unethical. It was so damaging. It was not fair to Blake. It was it was so poorly handled.
And with the social media ramifications of reality TV happening now, I forget the name of the show, but someone from a reality show, dating, whatever it is, killed themselves not long ago.
Oh, it's Love Island
from Love Island.
The UK.
So you're seeing real-life ramifications show up from what is a massive amount of technically cyberbullying happening to people based on a reality TV show and what they do on it. Blake has already been very outspoken about his mental health. This situation makes me concerned because he's right. 100%.
Yeah. He did nothing.
And yet you see Onyeka saying it's okay that Caelynn said that because her feelings were hurt. You see Dean say whatever he said. You see the cast tell Blake to man up and apologize for defending yourself. Here's what I can't stop thinking about when it comes to this case. And it's a little extreme, but it also fits the situation. Our culture is having a really hard time understanding what to do around assault victims because there are actual assault victims and survivors, and then there are people who lie about it to get attention or to attack someone they don't like. We have heard many cases of people in high school, in college, having rumors spread about them that they assaulted somebody, only to find out years or days or months down the line that was a lie. This person, these people have lost scholarships, they have lost jobs, they have lost friends groups, and people still don't believe them. And Blake is dealing with this right now on national television. He is innocent of any crime. No crime was committed at all. And yet,
on either side,
he is being persecuted as if that happened. He is facing real-life consequences that may never go away because Caelynn's feelings were hurt.
So she made up a lie.
And it's damaging his life. And that's disgusting.
It's really, really not okay. And the fact that it was kind of left on this note of like, the note was Blake needs to apologize, which has the meaning that Blake was the one in the wrong. And I don't know if this is how it actually played out at the taping, but it's what we saw aired on TV. And it was incredibly irresponsible.
She's upset. This is what I wrote down at the end of it. Caelynn is upset that Blake showed the world who she really is. Dishonest and manipulative. What happens when someone who's lying gets caught? They get angry. That's what you see. Yeah. Caelynn is angry because she's caught. And she is trying to bully the people in her life to confirm what she thinks. And Dean is just drinking the Kool-Aid. So, honestly, I thought this from day one. They deserve each other. Whatever. I don't care.
And Amanda in the chat says, Rachel, as a survivor myself, I had a very hard time hearing this too. We all heal in our own way in time, but this stood out like neon lights.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it was really, really, really bad.
Andy, I agree with you. I think there's probably something in the clause that they can't sue each other for actions taken on the show. But in real life, yes, this is a probably legal battle that could be fought because it is defamation. It is libel and slander. Like, Oh, I looked it up. I looked at what slander was while I Googled this while we were watching it. And yeah, what Caelynn's doing qualifies. Had this not happened in the context of the show, Blake would have a case. It's very irresponsible for the show to have handled it in the way that it was. Like, let it happen. The show did a very bad job handling it at the reunion.
Yeah, it's really disappointing.
Followed up by a more disappointment.
My
for the rest of the show.
My emotions were like this through the show because the Demi and Christian stuff was so amazing and so real. Even the Katie and Chris stuff, which we'll get to in just a sec.
Quickly.
Even though it was challenging, obviously, and they're going through some challenging stuff, it was so real, and that was a high point to me. This was so disgusting, like you said, and I just send all of my love to Blake, and truly, I hope that Caelynn can heal, because she has a lot of wounds, and I do not believe that she is inherently a bad human. I think that she is wounded, deeply, deeply wounded. And she needs to take responsibility for that and work on that, because right now it's hurting other people, and that's not okay.
Yep.
So that is that. If anybody that you know is not supportive of Blake, please feel free to pass this episode along. I listened to a couple other Bachelor podcasts while we were traveling. I usually don't before we do our recaps, but there was so much time in between. And a lot of them are just saying that Blake needs to apologize. And it's really hard for me to hear and not get on any platform that I can and say that that's wrong. So
I'd want to ask those people, how would you feel if it was in your position?
Yeah.
Because you've been there just with the person who's not going to paint you the same way that Caelynn is to Blake. So count your lucky stars it didn't happen to you, because the franchise has opened the door for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we cut to JPJ and Tayshia?
Yeah, we can skip through the Jade,
I don't care
Tanner, Chris, Crystal, Carly, Evan. Also, can we just talk about how gender reveals are like holding the world back? Yeah. Very quickly.
Sure. Yeah, dive into it.
Like, first of all, it's a sex reveal.
Yeah.
Not a gender reveal. Just saying. We don't know what gender the baby is going to be. Just because the baby is born with a penis doesn't mean that that baby is going to identify as male.
When that baby turns into an adult and can form their own opinions.
And not even opinions. Well, it's who they are.
Can form the realizations about themselves that they will
Yes. Have. Yeah. And to the whole concept of a quote unquote gender reveal, which again is a sex reveal.
It's a genitalia information giveaway.
Yeah, which like we have a party to celebrate what the genitals are on a baby. How weird is that?
It's super uncomfortable, and I don't like it phrased that way.
That's what it is. Yeah. It also perpetuates that gender is binary. And as we mentioned before, gender is not a binary thing.
And the weird color thing, too. Because girls like pink and boys like blue.
And look, that's not a criticism on The Bachelor. It's definitely not a criticism on Carly and Evan.
No.
It's just it's something that is, the more that we do it, the more we're perpetuating the gender binary concept. And anyway, we can move on. That's not what our show's about, but we needed to do that.
Good to touch on it. So the JPJ and Tayshia thing, I want to skip over real quick. I have one thing to say about it. Here's what happens. She left because she wasn't into him fully. Then she realizes she was wrong, and then she goes to his house. That was definitely a fake house in Maryland, or not his house. And she's like, I was wrong. And he's like, haha, cool. And now they're together. So here's what I wrote. I don't care about this. He was an unapologetic asshole to several people on the show and has continued to stay in his own world about what he did with no apologies. If that's the kind of guy Tayshia thinks she deserves, then fine for her. I don't think it's a good idea, and he has not demonstrated his ability to be a healthy contribution to our society.
Yeah, no.
So that's dumb. I found out that she really dislikes to say his name, and that seems to be her only real thing. She just says JPJ a lot. Like, all the time.
To me, the way that JPJ handled himself with the Derek stuff was so indicative of a bigger issue. that I can't imagine getting in a relationship with him. However, I wish them all the best. And that's it.
Yeah, I don't care.
So Chris and Katie. Katie comes out. She does not have a ring on. And she starts talking about, she says, I fell in love with potential that never came to fruition, but I really pray it does. So let's just break down this statement for a minute. As people, it is very common to fall in love with what somebody could be. Mm-hmm. And it's not all wrong. That's not 100% wrong. Because we all grow, right? When when Kyle and I got together, we're different versions of ourselves now than we were then.
Drastically.
100%. And does that mean that we grew? Yeah. And was there a part of Kyle that I knew would grow and evolve as we got older and he did the work? Yeah, of course.
And it did.
However, when I opted into the relationship...
When you opted in?
I opted into the person who was currently in front of me. Yeah. I knew that he would grow. I knew that he had that capacity. I knew that he had the desire to. Mm-hmm. But I did not get involved in the relationship because of what he could be at some point.
Right. And I want to take my side of that. I also knew that some of the things that I would have an enjoyment of doing, being a little crazy, going out too much, that part of me I also knew would not be around that much longer. And so this isn't Rachel looking at me being like, well, he'll show up the way I want in a couple years. I'm just going to be here now. No. We would do those things together. We had some ridiculous Vegas trips together. We're not doing that now because I don't like being hungover for a week. Like, I've grown out of that. And that's why our relationship is so amazing. That's why relationships are amazing in general. When you have the understanding is that we have the opportunity we loved each other exactly who we were then.
Yeah.
We love each other exactly who we are now. I don't love Rachel any differently from people were asking on social media from 2 weeks ago when she wasn't publicly bisexual to now that she is. Like, I knew that from day one. Like, nothing's changed. And it's really important. I just wanted to throw my hat in because it's so important to, I think, the guy to speak up in this case. Because so many people are like, well, yeah, the women tolerate the guy when he's crazy in his 20s, and then once he grows up, they're really happy. No, we've been happy every day as we grow, and that's part of it. I just want to throw it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Katie then says she doesn't feel like she's getting enough from him. And this is where I started having problems. Chris Harrison was essentially like trying to do couples therapy without being trained to do it. And some of the questions that he asked were not helpful in the healing process. Mm-mm. And I understand that this after show is not couples therapy. I get it. It's
Does Chris an Harrison
update.
Know that?
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Is that the line of questioning teetered too much on the line of, I felt like we were watching a really bad couples therapy session. And as a couples therapist, that was incredibly uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
I really don't have much else to say. Chris clearly has trauma from his past. He brings up past relationships.
A lot. Here's my thing. So, I understand what's happening. This is, again, the problem that I feel like the show does a very poor job allowing couples to talk, or people to talk about their relationship in a healthy format. It's the same frustration I have with only the women pre-proposal talking to Chris Harrison. Katie should, I use that word very intentionally, not have been there by herself to badmouth Chris's actions in their relationship.
Not to badmouth. She wasn't badmouthing. She was sharing her experience.
Okay, she was
sharing. But I agree that they needed to come out together.
Having Chris come out after this,
yes.
Who in the audience could look at Chris in a positive way when he walked out on that stage? That was so insanely unfair to him.
Yes.
Because now he walks out as this broken man, from Katie's opinion. And has he done what he could have had to make their relationship what it could be? Probably not. That being said, he does not deserve, no one deserves to be dragged through the coals before being allowed to give your version of the story. If they had done that side by side, completely different.
Also, just want to clarify, that's not Katie's fault.
No.
In no way, shape, or form is this on Katie.
I guarantee you production told her this is how it's going to go.
Not only that, I just learned this yesterday. They were separated that whole day. They were not allowed to speak to each other before the reunion, which is why he said I was so blindsided, because they did not have a conversation. They did not know if they were going to be coming out together. They didn't know if they were going to be coming out separately. They were held completely apart, and he did not know what they were going to talk about until he heard her on the set.
Do you think her not wearing her engagement ring was her choice?
No.
Because I don't think it was. I think the production asked her to take it off.
Yeah, it was not okay to discuss somebody in the way that they were doing it without Chris being there. Again, this is like couples therapy 101. You do not meet with the individual and hear an individual's experience of the relationship before meeting with the couple. And there are reasons for that.
So, here's what I wrote. After the commercial. She cut, and now he's out there. And he's having a hard time talking. And a hard time saying what he feels. So I wrote down, nothing will help a man or anyone who has struggled to open up in the past. Nothing will help them open up more than putting that level of pressure on them on national television. I'm surprised that he even came out. I'm surprised that he was not just shut down the entire time. Because not only is he blindsided, he's having very vulnerable things talked about him without him being there. And he's having his challenge and insecurity throughout life being painted in a very personal way without his ability to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I wrote, this is such a private and delicate topic to handle in the first place. A therapist should be running this talk, not a TV producer. The level of exposure and pressure on him will almost guarantee a negative response for him. She says, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
But I don't think she was. I think that the way that the production handled it forced her to. I don't think that she wanted to. You
don't?
No, I don't. Right. Why would anyone want that?
The only reason I question it is because in the past on the show we have seen her do something that she thinks is good that has backlash later, and she's like, oh, if I hadn't done that, the relationship, I think about her pushing Chris away around the dating thing. She has done things in the past where it's a reactionary situation. Then she's like, oh, but if I hadn't done that, things would be a little better.
I mean, yeah, I think that's all of us.
Oh, I don't think that it's 100% her at all. I think that she probably had all of 10% opinion in this before the camera started rolling. I still hold her a little responsible for the situation.
But what was she supposed to do? Hi, I'm here, but I'm not going to talk about my relationship like my contract states?
I guess. I don't know. I just
actually.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that they were both given a very unfair situation.
I agree completely. I'm just saying I don't think that Katie's intent was to have a public couples therapy session. I think that the way that she started talking about it to Chris Harrison was one thing, and then the way that Chris took it, the questions he was asking, that started to be the problem. She kept it relatively general at the beginning, like, it hasn't been great, blah, blah, blah. And again, this is what's frustrating about it being taped 3 weeks ago. Like Michael just said in the chat, in later interviews, which are current, they've been doing a lot of work on their relationship. They seem in a much better place. So I'm watching this like, this is torturous. This was horrible for the people. It's not even accurate to what's going on now.
Right.
And it just felt...
So, in the chat, Andy reminds me in the chat, it's the next part of my notes right before we wrap this up. So, we see a cut to Chris and Katie outside where he's like, what the fuck just happened in there? And she's like, I didn't mean to blindside you again. And he's like, but I was blindsided. She didn't mean it. I get that. However, and thank you, Andy, in the chat for reminding me, it's the end of my notes for this. She admits that she was upset watching back what happened, and it stoked her emotions.
Yeah.
And I am not in any way comparing this to what Caelynn did, but being upset at something and having your emotions run high is never an excuse for doing something that is damaging to someone's character. Like,
no, but
take a deep breath.
Hold on. Katie did not defamate Chris's character.
Not the character per se. It's what Chris Harrison led her into that interview.
But she still did not. She did not critique Chris's character. In fact, she said multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
I know that he's a good guy. I know that he's capable of
That's
this.
true. That's true. That's true.
She said, I want to be with him.
Right, and then so tired and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right in that. It's my emotions were a high excuse that I am bothered by
But
the most.
excuse of what? For what?
Of going into it the way she did. I mean, she talks about it afterwards when they're in that weird production alleyway on the studio set.
On the set.
She talks about how she felt embarrassed that she looked desperate, and then because of that, she was a little more emotionally engaged when they started having the conversation. And it's just, I understand it. That's got to be really, if I were Chris in that situation, I would feel very unfairly dealt with in that situation.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The feelings, though, for me, would not be directed at Katie.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how I can agree with that.
They chose to bring her out first. She
Yeah.
did not say, I want to be brought out first and talk about Chris alone on the couch.
Yeah, it's pretty
I would be
illustrated.
pissed at production
Yeah,
for putting the person that I love
yeah,
in that position to talk about me.
yeah. Yeah. I could see, I don't know. I think about the way she was talking to him in the alley afterwards versus her on stage, and there's a little bit of a disconnect. I think that she could have, instead of being, I'm so tired, I give so much, I'm so worn out, there's a different way she could have phrased a lot of things that she said, which I think also plays into him feeling blindsided.
That I agree with, 100%.
And I think that's the emotions playing a larger role in what happened in the situation. That being said, I mean, I've never been in her situation. I don't know how I would feel in that situation.
Right.
I also, it's difficult to sit here and know, not being a contestant on the show, how heavy-handed production is and the editors are. Because, for all we know, the two of them were standing in the parking lot afterwards being like, man, production fucked us over. The editors really dicked us both around. We didn't get to see that. But that's what I would have done if I was him. I would have been like, man, we need to go to a coffee shop and talk. Because what we're being led into in this is not okay for me. It's not okay for what I'd want for you, my partner. Let's get this on paper outside of, this crazy TV shows like Ten Toes.
Yeah. Okay. So, we can move on from that.
All right. Sounds like they're happy, though.
Last thing to say, Chris and Katie, we'd love to work with you. So, give us a call.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Seriously. Dylan and Hannah are happy and boring, and that's it. So, yay.
Yeah.
And I mean boring in, a good way, in that way. It's just, whatever. They're happy. We don't really need to address anything.
Right.
And then Demi and Christian come in the hot seat. And I love this because they actually talk about the things that they love about each other that are not your eyes are so pretty.
The stupid laughter thing is what they tell each other they like each other about.
It's
Yep.
Yeah. So they have a great hot seat. Demi says that Derek is one of her favorite people in the entire world and that the world needs more Dereks.
I agree.
Again, slide into those DMs, people. And Derek, you just have sex with who you want.
God, you know what, though? After all this, I bet you he's not.
I know. And then Christian proposes to Demi!
Well, so that was so sweet. And someone in the comments earlier, I forget who, so apologies for that, mentioned it would have looked really, really great when Demi proposed if they had exchanged rings. I agree.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
That's something that is a really common thing to do in same-sex relationships. And basically they do that because Christian proposes. It's super sweet. She also mentioned that she was really surprised that she even got a call from the producers of The Bachelor because she knew Demi was going to go off, and the second they were separated, they both, turns out, were thinking a lot about each other, and she was surprised to get the call.
So
and when she got the call, she knew it was time to go, and so Demi talks about how hard it was to come out and to do this, and now she's liberated and free. And yes, they do get a lot of hate sent their way, but the amount of love that they get washes away all of that, and that's true. And if you feel called to give them hate, then you're stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought that it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And also, similar to opposite sex relationships, why is it that one person gets to propose? I loved that we got to see the other person get down on one knee. Like, forget the gender. It's so cool to see that reciprocated. I would love to propose to you, even though we've been married.
You can propose to me on that palapa thing you like so much.
I mean, if you can set that up,
Wait, why would I set this up? You're proposing to me.
Oh, yeah, duh. I mean,
so if we're ever on a white sand beach and there's a palapa, I'm going to get real nervous. No tropical vacations for us. So
it was really, really sweet. It starts raining down roses, and we cut to a commercial, and then they announce the next Bachelor, which, here's my thing. You all know that we've been Team Mike for Bachelor from the beginning.
Team Mike.
I don't understand why Mike is not the Bachelor. I don't. I think that there is an issue in the franchise with colorism, with racism, with sexism. There's a lot of issues within this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my want for Mike to be the Bachelor does not mean that I don't think Peter will be a good Bachelor.
Peter's the next Bachelor.
If Mike did not exist on Hannah's season, Peter would have been the obvious, clear, 100% choice for Bachelor.
He is the logical choice out of the pool, unless they were going to bring in someone completely new, out of the pool of Bachelor possibilities they have, because Blake is not going to be in it. Peter's the obvious choice. He's down to earth. He's kind.
Funny.
He's got a diverse family. He is aware and able to express himself sexually, which is awesome. The condom in the car thing, all the stupid windmill jokes, I'm not ready for that, but the condom in the car thing is clearly the most indicative thing for me about that. Like, that's great. I think it's going to be awesome. However, they skipped over the better candidate.
Yeah.
And that's just really unfortunate, and I hope that the powers that be, the production of ABC, Warner Brothers, Bachelor, Chris Harrison himself, extract their heads from their asses and cast who people want to see.
Yeah, we need to see what reflects real life, as Rachel Lindsay so beautifully put it. And real life is diversity, and that includes same-sex couples. That includes people of all shades of skin.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike was a perfect candidate for this. He's charming. Mm-hmm. He is sweet. Both Peter and Mike are great narrators. They're really good at narrating what's going on. They
Very
both
respectful to women.
They're respectful. They're open. They're funny. So it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Again, I wish they had picked Mike.
Yeah.
I also am happy for Peter. And so it's this kind of like, it's an and not or thing where, yes, of course I wish it was Mike. I've been Mike for Bachelor since day one.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's not Mike is not going to make me dislike Peter.
Yep.
Because Peter did not do anything to Mike.
No.
Right? Like the ABC chose him.
Yeah,
so
it's not Peter's fault.
It is what it is. We're going to support Peter because Peter does not deserve getting a backlash for ABC's decisions.
Yeah.
And we're also going to continue to support Mike in his journey.
Yeah.
So that is that. That was the reunion.
Here we are, end of the season of Bachelor in Paradise, season 3 of The Right Reasons. We got a broken set. We got no lights, no screen, signs ruined. We'll get some new gimmicks in time for the next season of The Bachelor with Peter.
So don't forget. Okay, so friends,
in this in-between season, we're going to have a few episodes drop. So don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast in case interviews like this one with Devin comes out. We want you to get them. And that didn't happen on YouTube. It happened just on the podcast.
Yep.
So be sure to subscribe to YouTube and podcasts. Follow us on Instagram so that if we have any updates, we can share them with you.
I knew that was going to happen at least once.
We're at The Right Reasons. That's the handle. And you can find our own individual handles in the bio of that Instagram handle.
Yeah.
And we just want to thank you.
Yeah.
This show would not be possible without you being here. Whether you are here with us live or you catch the recording and leave comments as you watch. It is absolutely impossible for us to do this without you being here.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being a part of this third season. If you've been with us since the beginning, thank you. If you just found us today, thank you.
We're happy to have you here, and thank you for joining us outside of our normal time. We know it's been a lot going on, so we're just super happy. And there's someone commented. I wanted to address who it was really quickly, and I've been meaning to do this. Someone in the chat. Oh, Andy. Thank you for liking my shirt. She says, I like Kyle's shirt. I bought one just like it for myself and my husband. Did you get it at J. Crew? I don't think so. What brand is this shirt, babe? Can you tell me? I think is it 3 bar 3 or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Macy's.
Yeah, Macy's bar 3. It's that like whatever.
The name of the podcast, somebody just asked in the comments, is The Right Reasons. So the Wright, spelled like our last name, WRIGHT, Reasons. And please give it a rating and review. It helps other people find it. Yep. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We're so
happy to have y'all here.
That you're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have any requests for us in the off season, let us know. I know somebody requested that we do an episode on love languages, and we happen to have an old podcast of ours about love languages, so I was able to send that to her. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, DM us, and we just love you. So thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you in between the seasons, and then we'll kick off official season 4 in January with Peter Weber as the
And make
Bachelor.
sure you listen to Devin's episode on our podcast, the interview we just did with him.
Yes.
Make sure you let him know what you think about it, because he's a good dude, and I really enjoyed that interview.
Yeah, tag the episode on Instagram with Devin and us, and we'll reshare any of your shares. All right, friends. Thanks for being here on a Sunday.
Bye-bye.
We adore
3.
you. Bye.
Adios.